Welcome to the Quality Meat Scotland podcast. Industry updates and best practice to promote, support, develop and protect the Scottish red meat sector.
Hello and thanks very much for choosing to listen to this. I'm Mark Stephen. We've been doing these QMS podcasts for a couple of years now, and time after time we came across the importance of benchmarking, of measuring, knowing what you did last year and the year before, and working out whether this year is actually better or worse. Data is important. Used correctly, it can make your farm much more efficient. It can actually save you money. Lawrence Martin is farm manager at Carbeth Home Farm in Stirlingshire. He's been a contractor and a shepherd, but he has a particular passion for technology as it relates to the livestock industry. John Fargher is the founder of AgriWebb. John's a fifth-generation farmer and farms a small, modest 400,000 acre spread in the North Flinders Range of South Australia with 2,500 cattle and 10,000 sheep. Thank you both very much for agreeing to do this.
Thanks for having us on.
Yes, absolutely. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
John, for a start, give me a bit more of a description about your spread.
Yeah, absolutely, and appreciate that for a lot of your listeners, that the size and scale could be significantly different. But as you mentioned, I grew up on a sheep and cattle station, not quite in the middle of Australia, but almost in the middle, in a very arid outback, remote location. And we're on about 400,000 acres there. Been there for about 5 generations. It's kind of split into two, I guess, soil types really, one being pretty sandy and arid where the cattle run, and the other area is a bit harder and stonier and a bit more mountainous, not like the beautiful green rolling hills of the UK, but much more arid than that. To put it into perspective, we have about 7.5 inches of rainfall, I guess, so she's pretty dry and very much a boom and bust environment. When it's good, you get kind of summer rainfalls and floods, and you can kind of make the most of it. And then when it's dry and long periods of drought, you need to lock it up and look after the environment so that you can bounce back when the times are good. So my folks are still there and very much a part of my life. Been very passionate about the industry, particularly the livestock industry. And I guess growing up there was a big reason and part of what's said about the foundations of AgriWebb, which I'm sure we'll dig into in a little bit more detail on this session.
We're going to do it now, as a matter of fact. Tell me about AgriWebb. How does it work? What is it?
Yeah, for sure. So as I said, the creation of it came out of my experiences growing up, and there are two other business partners. There's 3 of us as co-founders in AgriWebb, and AgriWebb is a livestock business management platform or a software platform, but really the focus is around operational productivity for livestock and mixed farming businesses. The crux of all of this is how you started this session around data and how that can be utilized to make you more productive, efficient, and profitable, and ultimately sustainable around all of that. But in order to be able to make decisions off data, you've got to collect it. And that's the core of what we do. The core of what we do is record keeping across the farm. So it's around, making a very simple and easy and intuitive tool for the farmer to go about their business. They pull out their mobile phone, and on that is the AgriWebb app, which then collects all of those day-to-day records across that livestock and mixed farming business. And, they can then use that information to make decisions in the palm of their hand while they're standing in the yards at the crush or out in the pasture. And then, of course, the deeper reports and insights that exist then back in the office, being a cloud-based tool, it syncs across devices, and then you can get home in the office and make more of those decisions. So that's the crux of it is really simple, intuitive data collection, using that information then to make more informed decisions. You have data to solve for not only making better, more informed decisions, but around compliance, which is obviously a big component here in the UK. And then also how we're using that information to move our business forward. We founded the business in Australia back in 2014. We always had a view of living for the farmer and delivering tools and solving the needs of the farmer, but we also had a global lens and wanted to solve this at scale, which we've gone on to do. So we opened up in the UK here in 2018. So we've been here since 2018. And then we opened our office in the US in 2020. So there are 3 hubs, Australia, UK, and the US. We do service customers in about 16 geographies now, and we have about 17 million animals on the platform. About 13,000 producers use our software. So that's at a super high level, and look forward to digging into it a bit more as we go through this afternoon.
17 million animals on the platform. That's seriously impressive. Lawrence, how do you use data in your day-to-day farming?
Good question. Data is imperative, really, for us to be able to understand the efficiency of every animal that we have on the farm. The profitability of farms, most UK farmers will certainly empathise, is marginal. So every single animal needs to be able to perform at its highest, and we need to make sure the animals that we're keeping are doing just that for us. Equally, a very wise man once said to me, don't try and be a livestock farmer, be a grass farmer, and your livestock will eat that. And so we also are trying to use AgriWebb to manage our grass growth and our rotational grazing system. For example, we used AgriWebb now for a couple of years, and last year we tried to get rid of as much paper as we possibly could. Used AgriWebb and all the data we'd collected over that couple of years, and we actually culled out 150 of our breeding ewes, and for a flock of 350, that's a massive cull, and that was all based on the data that we were able to collect through AgriWebb and through the convenience that John described really well. Being able to take your phone out in the middle of a field and capture the information straight away, instead of having that little bit of paper in your pocket or loads of scribbles on the underside of your arm. You're allowed to take it out and capture the data live.
How do you actually input the data?
So we are very tech focused here. So we have manually, obviously through the app. So we're able just to select the particular animal, find it, and add a record for that animal. We also have EID readers on our combi clamp. So when the animals come up, we're able to weigh them, scan them, and we have the XR 5000. So once all the data is collected on there, we can transfer that onto AgriWebb. And we also have a panel reader, a wand, so that if we want to individually scan animals, we can transfer on that way as well.
Coming back to you, John, this sounds really interesting, but it sounds as if it's something the big boys can use. Can small-scale farmers use this profitably as well?
Oh, absolutely. We the beauty of it is we have customers of all shapes and sizes. Some of our larger customers have, I think our largest has about 600,000 animals on the platform, large corporate, multiple properties, et cetera. But we also have customers that have 10 sheep. Right, so it really can be suitable to any size operation, and I would also say any sophisticated level as well. We have a basic offering which is more around that data collection and just being able to remove the pencil and paper notebook out of the top pocket, and then more sophisticated tools around the grazing management side, linking into your EID hardware that you can then record weights and seamlessly have those integrations. So it's really designed around the level of that producer and ultimately meeting them at the level they're at, and then taking them on a journey to help innovate and help move their business forward.
And Lawrence, culling 150 animals out of a flock of 350 is pretty ruthless. That's impressive stuff. Would you have had the confidence to do that without the hard figures behind it?
No, Mark, I don't think I could have said it better. The confidence is exactly what AgriWebb gives you. Is you have it's not just an instinct or a feeling, or, if I gather these 3 scrap bits of paper together, it kind of tells me I shouldn't keep that. It tells me that is not right for our system. And it confidently takes that doubt away from you to say, here is the evidence, here's the hard and fast numbers here to say, unfortunately, they're not doing what it is that they need to do for you to be profitable. And Day Tucker, who owns the farm, she had some quite extensive data gathered in the and she won't mind me saying, in the old-fashioned way of pen and paper, and obviously that can get lost, and it can be distorted and rewritten a number of times, and you've got that element of human error. But no, AgriWebb allowed us to very clearly look at what it is that we need our animals to be able to do, and select them without discrimination, really.
I did a bit of research into your background, John, and I know you did law at university as part of your degree. Do farmers need to, obviously lawyers think critically, they're trained to analyse, to be critical in the classical sense. Do farmers need to learn that skill?
Yeah, I depending on which environment or crowd I determine whether I bring up my background of being a lawyer or not. It can go both ways. So you've brought that up regardless of the scenario. But yes, from a personal perspective, I went off and did some professional degrees, not because I necessarily wanted to become a lawyer, but I just wanted to learn how to think differently and process and professionally. So that was but always had a passion to get back to agriculture, which is obviously what I've done. I think the biggest issue there, I want to come back to something that Lawrence just spoke about, which I will do, but the point that you're making there is really around farmers need to stop running a farm and start running a business. That's what has to happen. Too many times, it's just, we've been doing this the same way for however long, or I'm just going about my business and actually not looking at with a business lens of what's working, what's not, what's it costing me, what are the inputs versus the outputs, how can I get a handle on cost of production and gross margin so that, you have a handle on things from a business perspective. And I think that that's one of my biggest frustrations that I see in the industry, at a global level. I would say I had the opportunity to go and spend time I've just come from our US business and I'm going back there later at the year. And it's just this common thread where we just need to shift the mindset and shift the industry into running these operations as a business. A couple of quick examples I've had since I've been over in the UK. I've been here for a few months, and I was out at a function at Harper Adams, and I was speaking to an egg farmer, and he's pretty sizable and pretty sophisticated, really really good operator. And he said to me, he's like, only this year have I just got a handle on my cost of production. We were sort of having a laugh about it over a beer, but it was quite a daunting sort of concept that he was one of the more progressive ones ultimately in the country, and a very large provider of a retailer we're out there with. And that gave a reflection of the rest of the industry, because he was leading the way and he'd only just got a handle on it, and it was a multi-generational business. I had another example. I was up at the Malvern National Sheep Association show earlier in the week, and the common thread, you talk to people as they walk past the stand, is they don't have a handle on this from a business perspective. It doesn't mean they're not good farmers. It doesn't mean they're not passionate. It doesn't mean that they're not, in it for the long haul and trying to be good custodians of the land or hand it on to the next generation. It's all of those things, absolutely. But the focus and mindset is not around managing and running a business. And, another example that came out of that, there's a farmer of the year at some point, I'm not sure what year, and he was lined up to determine the next farmer of the year. And he said, look, you know what? It's actually a pretty decision when it gets to panel time, because in my mind, there's only one candidate out of all the applicants. And the reason there's only one candidate is because in all the applications, there's only one here that has a handle on the business aspects of the operation, which is costs, inputs, outputs, cost of production. And he said, so therefore it's a pretty easy decision. So look, I think that's one of the challenges we have, but also the opportunity. And that's what excites me. I think that, we have a huge amount of upside in our industry. We have some challenges, not only what I just described, but we have some macroeconomical and environmental challenges ahead of us. We need to produce more. We need to do with being more efficient, using less land with an eye on sustainability. And, I think that this really ties into a point that Lawrence was just making around what he has done in his business, right? Lawrence, you're saying, you've culled off 150 because the data just showed that they weren't right for your business. They weren't in the high performance, right? And we need to focus on our high performers. If you take a step back and look at the global livestock herd, sheep, cattle herd, and you think about, that 150 in your herd there is making, in your flock rather, is making up, 30%. If you took that 30% globally and we remove 30% of the underperforming animals that exist in our system, we would go a long way to delivering upon our sustainability requirements in terms of working with animals that actually are productive and produce, and removing the underperformers. And the net result of that from a macro perspective is pretty astounding. So, that example you mentioned there, Lawrence, is bang on where I really believe we've got an opportunity at scale to have a huge, huge impact and embrace the opportunities in front of us.
I agree more. I mean, to big up AgriWebb a little bit more than I possibly could. I'm a big advocate of the system. I think I didn't jump straight to AgriWebb and choose it without shopping around. AgriWebb is far beyond a farm management program. It is very much a business management program, and I think that's what really drew me to AgriWebb initially, and then spending time with the app and the system itself, being able to put the cost of goods sold really into the animal. Every time you dose it or jag it or have to do a treatment, you can put a cost to that particular animal and exactly see how efficient it is, not just its prolificacy, but how its efficiency matches what it's cost to produce it. Yeah, it's definitely something that we've been able to improve the bottom line on the farm, and actually, if there's anything that can excite me more than a brand new tractor, and that's exactly what we've just purchased because of, and I will credit AgriWebb for our ability to manage the business a little bit better and get us to a position where we can start reinvesting in more economical machinery and being able to do things a lot more self-sufficiently because of what AgriWebb has been able to do for us.
Let me take you back before AgriWebb, though, because what John was saying is you need to start running these things as businesses, not as farms. When you, Lawrence, went into the industry in the first place, were you thinking, I want to be a farmer, or were you thinking, I want to be a businessman?
I don't think you can identify yourself as one or the other. I think farming is very much a lifestyle and it's a mindset, but to run a farm, you need to be a businessman. So a good farmer and a good businessman is, the two hats that you need to put on to be able to be successful. But the romantic side of me was in love with the whole lifestyle of being a farmer, but from my background I understood that it's still a business.
I mean, and that was right from the off. There wasn't a point when you suddenly thought, oh, hang on a second, there's more to this than lovely sunrises in the morning.
No, absolutely not. You go in with the romantic idea. That's where a lot of people start their passions, and absolutely I went in thinking I can have some sheep in a field and a few cows, maybe some chickens, and make a living and have some children, and it'll be a wonderful lifestyle. So no, that the idea of the business elements and the costs involved and how you can stay in the black is definitely something that creeps in, and you come to terms with the small margins of becoming a farmer. Is you have to be very much a businessman at heart.
We were talking earlier about confidence, John, in terms of, the data can give you confidence to act decisively. But are there also confidence issues when it comes to adopting new technology? I mean, if you're trying to introduce this to farmers who are not digitally minded.
Yeah, I still think the biggest barrier to adoption ultimately is around change management. And, a similar question that some, that you get is, who are your biggest competitors? And absolutely that, as Lawrence said, he had a look around, there's others out there doing similar things. But I still think that the biggest competitor out there is pen and paper / mindset and change management. There's an enormous amount of kind of education and awareness that has to happen in this market to do two things. One is to really outline and identify the problem, so people actually can recognize the problem and then want to go and do something about it, and then help present some solutions. So I still think we've got a long way to go. We're not at the point now where the bulk of the industry just accepts that they need tools and solutions to help run their business. It's still like, well, why do I need that? I've been doing it like this forever, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it, type of thing.
So how do you support new entrants?
We have a huge focus on, what we call customer or farm success. So, it's about taking people through the journey of, as I said, helping them identify problems they have with their business and potential solutions that we have in our platform. And then, when someone joins us, it's around helping them onboard, implement, get up and running, And then we break it into what we call, the ongoing support, but ongoing success. And what that means is ongoing support is, if someone's got a problem and they've just got a quick question, we've got a number of ways to help support people through, a support desk and email and phone and those types of things. And also then from a success perspective, we can monitor our customers and make sure that they're engaged, that they're using the product, that they're getting value. And if not, we can actively reach out to them and help them get back on the journey. So, for us, it's, we are a software business. We are, ultimately a kind of a subscription model where people pay annual and monthly fees. And for us, it's not valuable to anyone in this relationship if they start something and then drop it. We need and want people to continue to see long-term value so we can have the impact that we're setting out to have. And look, honestly, we have an extremely low, what we call a churn rate, which is the rate of people that would, sign up and then leave you. Our churn rate sits at under 1%. I think it's around 0.8%. And I think that's a testament to the effort that we do put in on making sure that customers are getting value and coming along the journey. And I think it's also a testament to our industry and our farming folk. When they make a decision, it's not a quick win. It's not not taken lightly, and people are willing to commit to it, roll up the sleeve and give it a crack. So I think that does provide a very exciting future for us, but also other players in this industry to see that we can take the industry on a journey. Very humble, very honest, very trustworthy bunch of folk we are. And if there's value out there to be had, we'll look to wrap our arms around it and realize it.
Lawrence, this is all about measurability. It's about metrics, benchmarking things, keeping accurate records and so on. So presumably you also know, using this system, whether your profitability has increased, offsetting the cost of the system against it, obviously. Do you have that information?
Yes, very much so. The farm is definitely the bottom line of the farm, being efficient and knowing what animals to keep, which is equally as important as what animals not to keep, has certainly affected our bottom line. All of our sales of livestock, both fat animals and breeding stock, we implement that into the AgriWebb system, so we can see sort of a rolling account and the costs of drugs. So yeah, AgriWebb has certainly shown us where we spend money, maybe where we hadn't been as focused before, and we can see the increase in sales and efficiency. So yeah, AgriWebb certainly helped in that regard. Absolutely.
Interesting stuff. Listen, Lawrence Martin and John Fargher, thank you both very much for your time.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, and thank you, Lawrence, as well for your kind words and support as a valued customer. Much appreciated. Thank you both.
And obviously, thank you very much too for choosing to listen to this. This has been a QMS podcast. I'm Mark Stephen. I hope you found it useful.
Thank you for listening to the Quality Meat Scotland podcast. For news and to listen back to previous episodes of the podcast, visit qmscotland.co.uk. For Scotch beef, Scotch lamb and specially selected pork recipe videos and inspiration, visit www.scotchkitchen.com or follow Scotch Kitchen on Facebook, Instagram or Twitter.